Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it is a nice Thursday, and we got our guy Schleg's back. He's back from Indy. Schlegs, how was the trip, and I mean, how's your life been?
Hey, man, my life is good. I just had to take a dump real fast, and I'm the world's fastest dumper, and I left my office. I went around the back. I did my deal. I came back. Pat, what was my time? Because we were betting. I said, Pat, I could do this in less than 3 minutes. Pat, what's my time?
No,
2:39. 2:39. Look at him.
2:39 on the dot right there.
2:39.
Okay.
21 seconds to spare. Hands washed. Ready to attack and dominate. Get an on going in here. I'm probably going to put an on and a LFGO in for everybody out there because, first off, today is Thursday. Am I not mistaken, Bob? Is it Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday.
All right.
First day of the weekend.
First day of the weekend. The last morning juice tomorrow. I'm bringing it for like the next 36 hours straight for you.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that, Schlegs. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff happening here the last couple of days.
Like what?
As you were gone, looking around and seeing what was going on here, what was going on in college football. Did you have a chance to catch up on much? I mean, like Nick Saban, I guess, is Trump nominated him as football czar. You've got the Michigan stuff that's going on. We still have black smoke, so there's no new pope yet. I mean, I just didn't know if you're up on world affairs.
Nope, not at all. And I do like the feedback of Saban and all this because he's been there and he also has the trust of the other coaches that are seeing what he sees. And I think he's going to be impartial on what has to transpire. But again, like you're not going to create a system in college football that's going to be in the best interest of all schools. Just saying, it's not going to happen.
Well, what are all schools? Like all schools involved. So tell me that. Do you think like with this point, maybe the solution is some delineation where you have Power 4, Group of 5, and I don't want to say like a complete separation, but a separation in some of the rules of how they're governed with regard to the money that they're spending on the game and maybe like having their own championship series and things like that. Are you a proponent of that?
I am and I'm not. I am and I ain't, I don't know what you really say.
You have a unique perspective, Schleich, because you played at Air Force, which would be academy in a Group of 4 or Power 5 school or a Group of 5 school. And then you also played at Ohio State. So, you coached at Ohio State. So you understand the challenges and the pros and cons of each. So like you're kind of uniquely qualified. So this is why we have you on here is for you to give your opinion, dude. Not tell me.
I also coached in the league. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff, excuse my language, that I could talk. I just got off a podcast, Bob, and it was so juicy. It was fantastic. But anyways, we can get down the rabbit hole of how I think like coaches' contracts, especially strength and conditioning, needs to change because this came from that conference. But I would say this. I think right now, there has to be a cap of, the revenue sharing and even potentially like there has to be a way of validating what is an NIL contract. Is there a buyout component of that back to the school? Because when you think about it, if a guy leaves in the second portal, right? Well, that team wasn't going out and looking for another player in that position because they already had somebody, and now he's gone, goes to another school, and they already paid him money from, the January to that April, May portal window. So I need like some money back here because I got no value. Like, what was the value of him being here in the winter conditioning besides being a part of the team? Like, he added no value to the field. That's why I think like with this, there needs to be a standard process. Like that's number one. Then number two is what is the cap? And then how do we actually use NIL to bridge that gap? I think that needs to be what is articulated. Because again, different than the NFL, the revenue dollars are not the same. Bob, you know this, I know this. NFL, every single team gets the same cut, like boom, right? But like TV contracts for the Big Ten versus the SEC versus the ACC versus the Big 12, they're all different. So how do they make that up? What is that? That is what that has to be solidified because you already know that like the Mountain West can't do it. And I'll say this too. I remember back in the day, Urban's Utah team, really, really good. There are some power group of 5 teams that can play. We saw Cincinnati make it to the college football playoff just a few years back. Now they got housed, but I think that's kind of what the 12-team playoff does, right, for those teams. And again, that seeding, Boise should not have been like a bye. Like they should have been in there. The seeding should be predicated upon the 4 best teams get that bye, but then boom, the seeding is the seeding thereafter. So I think that would eliminate some of that because then they have to play somebody that they're not used to and we'll actually get a chance to see what they are. Plus, those schools, what do they lack that's different than the Ohio States, the Georgias of the world? It's the depth. And it's the depth at the skill positions. And these games, like good on good, like that is what is required. So I don't like seeing them on their own yet. I think it's going to go that way because it's going to go toward revenue, TV sharing. And there's going to be at some point, guys, it's just going to be college football. Like here are the 64 teams. Honestly, you and I have said this for a long time, Bob. Here are the 64 teams and here's the other one. And they're going to have their own national championship. And it's the same thing they do in high schools, man. They keep popping these things up. In Texas, you got big school 6A and little school 6A, big school 5A, little school 5A, man. It is what it is. And they're all state champions.
Well, I mean, I understand it. Just you want to make sure that everybody's competing on the same plane and like everybody has something to play for and like keep the quality high. And that way schools can participate in the manner of which they feel comfortable and what they're really able to. And no one, Ohio State and Ohio University have never been the same. And I've argued that for years because people said this was only going to make it different. Well, it always has been different.
Yes.
And that's always been the case. So, I mean, there's some solutions for that. I'm curious to see what Nick Saban has. I think we'll talk to Bill Bender about that coming up. As to if he agrees with it, where he thinks this is going. And because, the president stepped in, and was saying, college football, and this is one thing, Schlegs, that college sports, I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. College sports are uniquely American, and nowhere else in the world has college sports that are essentially like a semi-professional element where there's a high degree of passion. They're commercialized. People care a lot about it. There's a generationality to it where everyone has always cared. And so that's unique to America. Yeah. And so the rest of the world doesn't have that. And so you want to preserve what makes that special. And while we've kind of coasted towards NFL light for college football, I do want to preserve some of the elements that make it wholly unique and differentiate it from the NFL and not just another version of the NFL game. And so I feel like that's what Trump is working on, and that's probably what he's envisioning. And that's why you get Nick Saban and then the billionaire who's funding Texas Tech's NIL program, I guess, right now, who sold his oil company for billions and billions of dollars. I guess he's involved in this. So, I mean, hopefully you have people that are in the best interest of the game. And I think Nick honestly has that. He loves the game, and he wants to make sure that whatever decisions are out there. I mean, the guy coached Alabama, he coached LSU, he coached at Michigan State, hell, he coached at Ohio State. He's from West Virginia. Like, he's been around a lot of places. And I think he probably wants to build a system that helps promote the athletes, helps compensate the athletes, gives them some freedom, not all freedom, helps them develop as young men. Like, there's a lot of boxes that you have to check and that you can check in doing this. So that's one thing that they're probably going to try to figure out, and hopefully they do.
And I'm going to say he also understands how problematic this current system is for the coach. Guys, it is, man. When you are going through a college football playoff run, and we've already heard about and having coaches trying to get contracts, that's one thing. But then also having other people contacting your players, slipping into their DMs, trying to poach them while you make the run to then sell your own guys when you spent the entire year building. And again, you and I have talked about it ad nauseum, like the 2024 team is just the 2024 team. And now you got 2025. Every team is uniquely different. And you spent all that time, and now you got anybody that can just come in there and try to poach them. There is no roster management. Like, you can't do that in the NFL. There's fines and consequences for doing so. So the roster management is huge. Again, because we're talking about Ohio State, like, when you lost a couple guys that played special teams, and then there was a couple plays where there was a touchback, and I'm like, Jake, or not Jake, but Ballard. I was like, man, he would have made that play, but he was gone. And it's like, boom, like that. Those things matter when you're making a run that way, because those are game reps that you can't ever get back, and you're not going to give somebody those reps thinking like, oh, I can see the crystal ball in the future. I know he's not going to be here. We're going to rotate this guy in now. Like, no, that's not how it works. The other thing I want all fans to understand this. This is not going to trickle down to the other sports. It is uniquely football because it is the revenue generator. We talk about, Bob, on here about look at the brand of the NFL in the NFL draft compared to the NBA playoffs. Dominated time slots, man. Like, it is king. So to think that, oh, we got to do this, but then we also got to somehow trickle that down. No, it is not going to be the same. And that is what Ross Bjork has to then work through as opposed to cutting stuff. How do we continue to, foster being able to support 1,000 athletes in 36 sports and do that through NIL? Like, all these things that we're doing will help that. I'm gonna get off a soapbox before
get off. So don't fall. Don't roll your ankle.
No. I'm doing this. I'm stepping off. Off.
Okay, guys. Good stuff there. All right. We got a big show planned for today. We got Bill Bender coming up. We're going to talk about Nick Saban. We're going to get into the Penn State Jim Knowles situation. There's an article that came out outlining a little bit more of potentially what happened with Jim Knowles and the timeline of events and everything else, kind of rehashing. It's kind of ironic that it comes out right now. And
isn't it ironic?
I do think so.
Don't you think?
Atlantis. So we've got that. So listen, if you're watching this on YouTube or social media, please subscribe, follow us, leave your comments. We really appreciate all of that. We are live, Schlegs.
Oh, good. Hey, YouTube, what's up, guys? I'm coming in the chat. Here we go.
All right, there we go. So attention parents and athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high impact hits. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit to your own unique smile with 3D printed technology. That means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication, so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today to save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. Bill Bender of the Sporting News coming up next. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. Now we're joined by our guy, Bill Bender, on this wonderful Thursday. Mr. Bender of the Sporting News, give him a follow on X at Bill Bender 92. When you hear about Nick Saban, Bill, getting into the NFL's or the NCAA or football czar business with the White House, how does that kind of hit you as far as what we're trying to do maybe on a national level? And is Nick Saban the right guy to be tabbed with this?
I think he has a voice that carries, at least now, because we know how successful he was as a coach on the field. And I go back to this was like 2 or 3 years ago when he had the back and forth with Jimbo Fisher about Texas A&M buying all of their players and how he had really strong opinions on collectives and NIL and what the real intent of that was. And I remember there was a lot of collective eye rolling at the time because, we assumed that Nick Saban, how did he get all those players at Alabama? You even saw that last year with Shane Gillis on the game day set. So, but I do think Nick Saban is in touch with the real issues in college football and the ones that guys like you two and I probably like, dislike, or in between, especially with the employment status and contracts. And he can have a voice that perhaps President Trump will listen to.
Richard. So I had somebody in the chat say everything he does is going to be for Bama's benefit, but do you think that is the case, or he will be able to see all things in totality as to how it impacts college football?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I don't think he'll try to benefit Alabama now. I mean, I think one of the things that I enjoy about Nick Saban is his analysis on the game day set. I think he definitely brings, a perspective of one of the most, if not the most successful college football coach of all time. And I just thought, we always said if they needed a college football commissioner, that he would be that guy. That one I had mixed feelings about, because I still think it needs to be a guy that has somewhat of an administrative background but knows the game. A name that always got brought up was David Cutcliffe. I thought that was a good one. But Nick Saban certainly has a voice that we listen to, and at least for the next 5 years will still be in the consciousness of college football. So if you're going to tackle, what are the big ones? NIL, we need to figure that out with like I said, the contract and the employment status, the transfer portal, which has become a topic of conversation on this show with you guys.
Yes.
And basically what you guys were getting at in that last segment is, are we moving toward a Super League NFL model where, the haves play the haves, and we see more of that? I thought there was an example of that this week with Notre Dame and Clemson scheduling a 12-year agreement that I think is great for Notre Dame. Every game those two schools have played in the last 11 years have had a little memory or a tagline that you can remember. So, I mean, that's a really great move for both of those schools.
Yeah, I saw that, and that was exciting because there's been a worry, Bill, that in this new 12-team or expanded playoff that you will fail to see those early big non-conference games. And Ohio State's got Texas this year. On the other half, they've got a back-to-back with them. They've got Georgia. They've got Bama. They've got a lot of big games, and people are like, are those games going to be played? And for me and for you, like, you're a fan of the game. You want to see those matchups. Those are the things that make it fun out there in late August, early September, talking about, the two Goliaths. And now you don't get penalized as much for losing. And so I think there should be more incentive to play it as opposed to less. Do you think, though, when you start talking about the sub leagues within or subdivisions within, even now, the FBS, do you think that that's a logical conclusion that Nick will come to, I guess? Because I've heard a lot of people in their different answers and solutions to this, and I'm just trying to figure out and anticipate what Nick Saban, what he views will potentially be the best answer.
Well, I think the best answer is going to be, if we go to 16 teams in the playoff, there is room for that group of 5 school. And there is room for, ACC teams, maybe 2. But at the end of the day, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to continue to drive the bus in this sport from a revenue standpoint, from a rating standpoint, from a, blockbuster matchup standpoint. What's the big game in week 1? Texas, Ohio State. That's going to drive a ton of ratings. That's not to say people aren't going to watch Miami and Notre Dame, or Clemson and LSU, which I think is a huge game in week 1, by the way. But the SEC and the Big Ten and the continued dominance of those two leagues. I mean, right now the Big Ten is riding off back-to-back national championships, and Penn State and Ohio State will be and even Oregon will probably be among the top favorites going into next year. So, and the SEC dominated the sport, obviously, from BCS era on. And I think those are the two conferences to watch. Do we want that? Do you really want that? People have to ask themselves that question. I lean toward yes. I would rather watch Ohio State play, 10 conference games, maybe one huge non-conference game, and then play a group of 5 school with the other game. I think that's a more compelling schedule than what's their non-conference this year. I know they're playing Ohio University, Grambling, Texas. I mean, we could probably scrap Grambling and add a conference game, in my opinion.
What do you think is the number. You said the NIL and the portal and those people. What about the cap? And what about contracts? Where do you think that? Because again, so help me if we don't hear, 14, 15 weeks of just Texas should be the champion. They spent $30 million on their roster, right? Like we heard last year at Ohio State. And Ohio State was actually like fifth in the country in NIL for their players that were developed there. But what is that first thing that we have to cap or set a standard that we can't go above this in college football, in your opinion?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, didn't Ohio State's investment pay off? I would say it did. You won the national title. Was there a inordinate amount of pressure to win the national title? Yes, but they delivered. Now you're hearing reports about Texas and what that number might be. I mean, I don't know what. I hesitate, Schlegs, to say salary cap, because does the NFL really have a salary cap? I mean, you always hear about these teams are over the cap, but they kick contracts down the road and all those things, and they find a way to restructure. I don't know if we can do that at Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, places like that. I would say at some point the NIL numbers are going to get out of hand. But, Bobby and I were talking about this Monday, that you're talking about a sport where emotion plays a larger role in college football than it does the NFL.
That's right.
I mean, because guys get cut in the NFL just like that. It's over. And in college football, we overreact to losses. I know we're going to get into the Jim Knowles article. I was just reading that, and
juicy
emotion governed some decisions made there. There's no question.
So you talked, Bill, about, adding another conference game. The SEC is still sitting at 8. It's been talked about how they might go to, how I guess ESPN is asking for them to go to 9 games. Maybe there'll be additional comp with that. I'm probably about 99% certain that they'll want assurances, if they're doing that, about getting a 4th team in the playoffs, since they only got 3 this year and the Big Ten ended up getting 4. Even though this was this was a down year for the SEC. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. And, their best team was Texas, who had just entered the conference. So it wasn't like it was one of the traditional SEC Blue Bloods. And so do you think that 9 games happens in the near future for the SEC?
I hope so. They should be at 9 games. There's no reason why they shouldn't. I remember having some hesitancy about when the Big Ten went to 9. And my biggest thing was, okay, what do we do about the years where Ohio State has to play 4 at home, 5 on the road? Now, I know they're going to make that up with their non-conference games and end up playing 7 home games anyway. But I always thought that was the imbalance. And then we've done it for however many years now, and it works. It's better than watching Ohio State play another group of 5 opponent, in my opinion. And I think the SEC should go to that. I know the crutch they lean on is, hey, we've got these ACC rivalry games where, Louisville plays Kentucky or Florida and Florida State play. I understand that. Well, then why are you scheduled? But that's offset to me by the fact that they have that week where a lot of them play FCS schools. So let's go to 9 conference games. I don't think Power 4 schools should be allowed to play FCS schools, as much as I love FCS football, but I just don't think it makes sense.
Is that from a monetary standpoint, or from just competitive balance, or just quality of game? Is that?
Well, most of the quality. I guess you could. I mean, I'm going to take that back somewhat, because that Colorado, North Dakota.
Don't.
State, yeah, I'm taking back a small part of it. I thought,
all right,
Colorado, North Dakota State was a lot of fun to watch last year, but North Dakota State is at the top of that heap, right? Like, so if you're a top 2 or 3 FCS program, and North Dakota State could end up in the FBS someday. So I take a small part of that, but Ohio State shouldn't be playing FCS schools. I'll
make it to where a group of 5, like, you got to go, like, make that the bridge, right? So then it's like, that's a quality win over a really good group of 5 school. Like, that, honestly, like, if they want to be in the mix, group of 5, like, make them in the mix that way. That's basically what you're saying.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, kind of. And I want to see good matchups. I want to see good conference matchups. I think, I've been a proponent, Schlegs, of the Big Ten doing 10 conference games. That way you get 5 home and 5 away, and then you do 2 non-conference games from there. And in this system where we have, what do we want to see? Good football games.
You want good on good, man.
We want to see good on good. And if it's going to be more like the NFL, and if you can lose 2 games now. I think eventually you're going to be able to lose 3 and get in the playoff. Why not play good teams?
Gosh, 3 losses. That's a lot. Kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit, Bill. But, I mean, if you're getting 16 teams in, I don't think you're going to be able to find 16 2-loss teams. And that's just the function, especially if you're going to be playing 9, possibly even 10 conference games just through cannibalization. All right, we're going to take a quick break. There was some news that came out that Bill referenced, and he's taking us right where we wanted to go. The Jim Knowles situation, him leaving Ohio State for Penn State, the timeline of events, how it went down, what happened. Is there someone right? Is there someone wrong? We'll find out next in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show with our guy Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Make sure you go check out all of his stuff over on Sporting News. What's our off-season project that we're working on right now, Bill?
Oh, we have more than enough. We're starting to get into the college football offseason, as you know. Like, you start to see our quarterback rankings. We'll have coach rankings, schedule rankings. Our post-spring top 25 was out last week. I'm going up to Brown's rookie mini camp on Friday. This is that kind of where I can play different rules for us. So we'll see what's going on with Shador on Friday. And then as you saw, I've got lacrosse picks up on the site right now. Ohio State, Notre Dame, for the fans out there, that is going to be an amazing game Saturday.
It is.
Ohio State has the best goalie in the country, Caleb Fiak. We had a feature on him last week. He's incredible. Looks like a guard. He looks like he could square you guys up, maybe. Big guard looking guy. Maybe not Schlegels, maybe not Bobby, but he looks like he could play a little bit, and he did in high school. And an amazing kid. So that's been part of the rotation this week, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that Ohio State Notre Dame game on Saturday.
Are you not going to? I know the tickets are pretty pricey. My wife was able to procure a couple standing room onlys for our kids. Are you going to try to make it up there on Sunday at 1? I mean, what's a better Mother's Day present than that, Bill?
Well, we've got the middle school lacrosse tournament in Dublin this weekend, so I hope we're playing Sunday. At 2:00 in the division we're in. So it's caught on, guys. It's definitely caught on in Central Ohio a little bit. You're seeing it. I think you two would have been awesome with a defensive defender deep pull in your hand. But it's fun to watch.
You know what's amazing is like they delayed or canceled. I think the UA we have rec league games for our 5th and 6th grade and 3rd and 4th on Sunday, and those are right around that time. And I think they extended those so everybody can get out and watch Ohio State. They're going to be an awesome environment over there, right beside the Woody Hayes. So I encourage everyone to watch it. Going to be a lot of fun. Nick Meyer's doing a great job there with that squad, and they drew Notre Dame to start, so an unfavorable draw, but they do get the home game, and if they can win this, hopefully make a run right to the final as well.
Yeah, one thing I want to say before we talk about Knowles. So the way the lacrosse tournament works is you have 10 auto bids. So imagine if every conference in college football got an automatic bid, and then the part of the reason Ohio State's playing Notre Dame, they just kind of randomly throw them in there. I thought Ohio State should have been a 2 seed. So Penn State's playing Colgate, Ohio State's playing Notre Dame. I think with the increased popularity of that sport, they might have to look at some things. It's 18 teams. They do 2 play-in games. I can't picture college football going to that many teams, though. 18 play-ins, 10 automatics, because like we said in the last segment, you want 4 or 5 Big Ten teams in. You want 4 or 5 SEC teams. You want those heavy hitter matchups. Well,
and the problem is every conference gets their champion in, and there's conferences with 6 teams, and it's like the quality isn't quite the same. And so you're getting some auto qualifiers that maybe aren't as good while you're leaving out a good team or 2 from the Big Ten, in the Ivy League and some of the different better lacrosse conferences. So excited to watch that. And as we go out east, I mean, lacrosse is a sport in the Northeast as well. Jim Knowles in the Penn State situation.
Let's go.
He leaves Ohio State, and a lot has been made about this timeline. It's the best. We'll lay it out. Kind of the best is I understand it. A couple
Lay
days
it out.
midweek before the national championship game, I guess he had gone to the Ohio State administration wanting a new contract. They said, listen, not so fast. Like, let's play the game first. Shortly after the game, I think they had kind of offered him, a contract that was comparable to Penn State, or it was, a raise of over what he got. I think it was 2.7 is what it's been reported. Penn State ended up offering him over 3, but Ryan Day was like, listen, if you want to take the offer, great. If not, and you haven't signed it, don't come to the celebration. And I mean, people may look at that a little differently. I mean, I think that's probably like, if you're on the team, you're on the team, great. If not, then you can go ahead and pack up and leave. I just think, Bill, for someone to try to get a contract before a national championship game, to me seems like a little bit of cart before the horse.
A little bit. And, obviously there's some in Heather Dinnich's article, I'm reading through it now. There's some juicy stuff, like you said, but not really. I mean, I don't blame Ryan Day for not commenting on that article. What is he going to say that's additive or helpful for Ohio State at that point? The not coming to the celebration was strange, but Ryan Day at that celebration was very complimentary of Jim Knowles and the job he did. There's a quote in there about the scrutiny of being a coordinator at Ohio State. I know we've talked about this before on here. It isn't like other jobs. Being the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, it's not just the win, it's the style points that matter. I remember leaving the Iowa game last year. I believe Ohio State won 35-7, and I was getting text and complaints about Chip Kelly's play calling in the first half. And, they won the game by 28 points. There is a different curve to be an Ohio State's offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. And that's just what you sign up for with this job. And he's going to experience that at Penn State too. I mean, that's a program trying to win its first national championship since 1986. That's a program that hasn't beat the Buckeyes since 2016. So, and they really shouldn't have won that game, if we're being honest. There was a blocked field goal there. So there's a lot to that job as well. It adds a layer, but I tend to side with, not, like you said, Bob, not trying to get the contract before the title game.
Well, can I chime in on this? Because first off, we go so much to where we have talked about NIL. We've talked about this stuff of like, hey, I got guys being poached. Hey, we talked about Nico and the guys like, hey, I got to get more money because I'm playing more games and it's NIL. And honestly, I understand their side, right? Because when you go to the playoffs in the NFL, the first game, Bob knows this, you know this, Richard. It's if you win the first game, you make this much. If you lose the first game, you make this much. Then you go on. And if you win that game, you get this. If you lose that game, you get that. That structure has been there all the time. All college football has to do is replicate it. Same thing for their coaches, by the way. But then if we're always talking about it's about the team and you're in the midst of it, how I view Ryan Day, my perspective, is what in the Sam Dick are you coming up and like Ric Flair style, coming over to me, talking about a contract while I'm trying to win a national championship? Do you not remember the team meeting that you weren't in, but I told you about? And we're our guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, the audacity to do that as a coordinator, come up, accomplish the mission, let's have the convo. That's how it should happen. That's the pecking order. Because we all know after the season, if you want to go, and you remember, you're only as valuable as your second best option, and you want to go out there and navigate the waters and see if you can get more money, go do it, but not as a distraction, certainly from your head coach of what he's trying to accomplish right now. But if you want to meddle in that, because I look at it this way, is your bandwidth all in on winning the games, or is your part of your bandwidth going in and trying to get more money? I want every single ounce of your fiber of your being on beating Oregon and Texas and Notre Dame, Tennessee at the beginning. They're terrible, but I want it on that, not you testing the waters, right? Accomplish the mission first, bruh, and then we can talk. And I think he probably felt, Ryan, I would have felt that he went behind that and like, I don't want to be a part of it. If that's how you want to do it, if that's how you like to do your business, probably not the right fit for you, bro. And guess what? I like where we are with Matt Patricia. Proof David Copperfield.
For sure. And, like they're when you're coaching Ohio State as a coordinator, let's be honest, it's only going to end one of three ways. You will get fired because you didn't do a good enough job. That's happened, right?
Yeah.
You get a promotion, to me, which the promotion would be what Mark D'Antonio did. You win a national title, you go coach at Michigan State. I know you guys know those guys, and I've heard Jim Tressel. Yeah, Cincy, then Michigan State, which was moving up, and that's what he wanted to do. And Mark and Jim are still friends, obviously.
Yeah.
They hated playing each other. I've heard both coaches talk about hating to play the other one, but Mark went on to better things. And then, this one's strange because it's not a lateral move. It's an in-conference move. And this happens all the time in the SEC, by the way. The coordinators switcheroo and move around. I think John Chavis has coached about half the SEC schools. So it definitely adds a little bit more to this Penn State-Ohio State game in November. And probably, if I was making that list now, it's probably, not quite Ohio State, Michigan, but it's right there because of the Knowles element this year.
You could make the argument over the last 15 years, there's been better, more competitive games with that Ohio State-Penn State game, even though the rivalry is lopsided to Ohio State than maybe there were for Michigan, especially if you discount the last 4 years. So it's been one of the better rivalries since Penn State got in the Big Ten. Bill, we appreciate your time, sir. I'm sorry for Schleg, you having to hear Schleg's rant there and his diatribe, but hopefully you're a better man for it, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Hey, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for having me on. Take care.
There's our guy, Bill Bender, the Sporting News. Go check him out there and on at Bill Bender under 92. I want to tell you about some great new gear. Our friends over at Backer, BCKR.com. They've got premium products, premium hats, jackets, founded to make better fan gear. The stuff that you go fishing, hunting, skiing, golfing, that elite gear that feels good, that looks good, that's going to last for longer. Well, it costs a little more, but the value is there in the quality. Like I said, I've worn the
I saw your little IG picture, Bob.
Yeah, well, I had the rain jacket's awesome.
That was nice.
The windbreaker's terrific as well. And so I've worn a couple of those. They've been tremendous. I've really enjoyed them. The quality is there. So listen, they're high-end outdoor products. Make sure you check them out. When you buy something off Backer.com, BCKR.com, a portion of it's going to go back to Ohio State student athletes as well. And if you use promo code Bobby, all caps, at checkout, then you're going to get free expedited shipping. Again, that's Backer, BCKR.com. All right, coming up next, we've got our headlines. We're going to dive more into this Jim Knowles situation because Schleg's went on his rant about it. I had something else I wanted to add, and we'll break that down here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show and the Jim Knowles situation. We got our headlines, Schlegs, brought to you by our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. They're a full-service ad agency built on trust, strategy, performance, the things that you'll want, the people you'll want to partner with. Lake Spur, their team shields you and your team from the outside noise, the cold callers, so you can do what you do best, run your business. It's tough to work in the business while you're working on the business. With more than 100 years of marketing experience, Lake Spur Marketing eliminates waste. They deliver on budget. They don't chase clicks. They build partnerships. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in the partners. All right, Schleich, some more into this Jim Knowles situation. And here's my problem, because I've heard people say, well, and Jim talked about this happened at Oklahoma State, where he didn't get a contract before the end of the year was up, and then it got weird at the end, he ended up leaving. And this is the argument, like, you're getting ready to go play a national championship. You don't hear Tom Brady renegotiating his deal before the Super Bowl. And that week, we shredded Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee for trying to renegotiate his deal right before the playoff, and then again before the spring game. So you're going to them, and Ryan will be your biggest advocate if you're doing a good job. But frankly, there were some tweaks that had to be made this year. And I think Jim Knowles is a great defensive coordinator. I like Matt Patricia probably a little better because I grew up in his scheme. So there's some obvious bias there. And I think he's going to do a great job. And that probably made it easier to transition off of Jim Knowles. But the reality that you would go to your administration, your head coach, and saying, I need a new deal, even though we're playing in a couple of days, even if it's your agent or whatever. Ryan got a big new deal, Shikes. You know why Ryan got a big new deal? Because he won a national championship. If he gets to the national championship, I don't think he's getting that new deal. He still has years left on his contract. Things are going to stay as is. Hey, bud, thanks for getting us there. This kind of offsets the loss to Michigan. You had the team believe in you. You made a great run. We got to the national championship game again, but we didn't win. But you know what? He had them focused. They went in there and they did a great job and they won the game. Then after that, then everybody gets to get raises. Everybody gets to renegotiate things because you're a champion. You don't get to do that beforehand. And honestly, the fact that that happened in that timeline and you're telling me about something that happened at Oklahoma State, dude, you weren't playing for national titles at Oklahoma State. So it's not the same comparison. And this is Ohio State and it's a pressure cooker. And then, like Ryan says it all the time about your players, Schlegs. If the first thing you care about is money, then you know what? This probably isn't the spot for you. And so if you're going to say that, we gave you a fair offer. We gave you a raise, 2.7 and change. You want to try to get a couple $100,000 more at Penn State, that's fine. If that's the most important thing to you, then that's all right. But you don't need to show up at the celebration and you can move on because we made a very fair and competitive offer. And honestly, like, I understand that. If he wanted to say, hey, we'll talk about it after the celebration, if you wouldn't have went beforehand, okay, and tried to get money before the game, then I would have said, go to the celebration and work on it after. But with everything that had led up into it, I don't blame them. I understand why they're not commenting on it because frankly, if he would have signed the deal, he would, hey, sign the deal, come to the celebration, be part of the squad and move forward. But if not, you're either on the team or you're off, Schlegs. And at that point, it looked like he was off.
Yeah. And when did they do Ryan's deal, Bob?
After the deal, probably after I don't think it was, I don't know, timeline off is before the celebration, like late that week or maybe the next week.
It was after the game, right?
Yeah, it wasn't before the game. It was after definitely the week after, maybe two.
And so that's the whole point of this, right?
You're not getting a new deal before your head coach is.
Guys, let's think about this. Let's think about this. You know, one, that right there, Bob, is the point. You're a coordinator. So there's business, right? You got CEO. I've always said this. The head football coach and now college athletics is the CEO of Ohio State Football, LLC. Okay, Mickey Marotti, he's the chief operating officer. Your director of football operations. They're the CFO. Unequivocally, they have no finance backgrounds, but whatever, okay? All right, then you have your coordinators. They could be the senior VPs, executive VPs. I don't give a crap what you want to call them, but they're there. As you go through a business and you start to divvy out bonuses, or maybe there's stuff structured in a contract where you get a percentage of that revenue, guess when that happens? At the end of your fiscal cycle. Not just whenever you're like, oh, I want my bonus in Q3. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to go to try to negotiate your own before the head guy's there. And maybe it was like, well, what if we don't win? Or what if we don't do this? I want some more job security. But that goes back to me. And as much as this world is NIL and all this other stuff, like there's still the thing about it is all about the team, Tress, right? And let's accomplish the mission at hand before I go to the negotiation table to say, here's what I've done defensively for high. And he had great cases to go argue why he should be paid more. Already one of the highest paid coordinators in the country, Bob. So that's one. But to say, hey, you know, over the last 3 years, here's what I've done at Ohio State from a defensive perspective comparatively to where they were before I got here. And it was significantly better. And I would argue this was one of the greatest Ohio State defenses that has ever been here statistically. I'm like all over the place. So you've done a great job. You're significantly better than you are now than when you found it. So yes, that would warrant another contract. But to do it before the head coach, to do it before the end of the season and accomplishing the mission was the bad look. And I have no problem with Ryan Day saying, hey, man, you want to go fish the water, especially at that school, then guess what? You know, I'm going to applaud what you did while you're here, and we're going to leave it at that.
All right. Ryan, we'll break this down in our tailgate talk next of when he got his contract. And any questions you have, throw them up in the chat. We'll answer those for you coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. We got our Tailgate Talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. Go check them out at realtruck.com. And Schleggs, what's interesting, we answer your questions, whatever you've got for us here. You're hyping up RJ Day from training him at the Armory, Schleggs, which he's a very impressive young man, to say the least.
He's sound great, man. I mean, the thing is, but
well, Ryan got his deal on February 19th is when it was finalized. So, 3 weeks.
January 20th was everybody knows was the championship.
3 weeks after the celebration, basically a month after the game. And so I understand things are moving fast. And Jim Knowles would have got, they had his deal out there to him and ready to go before the celebration. It was there. And, Ryan, I don't even think Ryan's the highest paid coach. He's one of the top 3 in college football. Okay, that's great. Are you happy where you are? Do you have great players? Do you have the support you need? Do you have the staff that you need? All those things. If the answer is yes, then you check that box and you'll feel good about it. Go ahead, Schleggs.
No, I have nothing. I want to answer some questions.
All right. Terry Slusher, who has more pressure to win a national championship this year? Steve Sarkisian with Arch Manning and a $40 million roster, or James Franklin going all in on the roster retention? That was from J-Book, our guy over.
I'm actually going to say Penn State, Bob, and that might surprise some people because, and I would say, and it's because Arch is a first-year starter versus Aller being a guy that's already played. They went to the semifinals. Texas has been there, but I think James Franklin, and it's the notion that he can't win the big one. It's like that has always been, the Achilles heel in the big games. Has he been able to win them? And yes, he went on a little bit of a run in the college football playoff, though probably the path of least resistance that he had to make that run. I think him now. He's done a good job. He got Knowles. He got who else? He got Stan freaking Drayton, right from Temple, who's a really good one. He was the head coach of Temple, but really good running back. I have a lot of respect for Stan. So he's got some great coaches on his staff, and he has a lot of guys returning. So again, we go back, like you look at the Michigan team that won in 23, heavily veteran team. Ohio State this year, heavily veteran team. Penn State, heavily veteran team. So I'm interested to see. I think the most pressure is on James Franklin and that community because of what he's done his inability to win the big one in the past to get over that hurdle.
I agree with you in that, Schleggs. We'll have one more here from Daniel Sanchez, Schleggs. Do you think Coach Saban is on the right track, or is he overstepping? Sorry if we already touched on this. I think Saban is going to do what's best for the sport. I know people think he's just going to do what's best for Bama. I think he legitimately is going to try to figure out a way to get some guardrails on some of this. And he's someone who's fairly universally respected. And he's still relevant enough because he just got done coaching. So honestly, I know people think that, it's crazy, SEC guy, all this stuff. I mean, listen, Nick's from West Virginia. He coached at Michigan State. He coached at Ohio State. He's coached at a lot of different places. I think he wants what's best for the sport because he cares a lot about it. And, you can talk about Alabama Jones and everything else with the hat and, him paying players with Shane Gillis and all those things. But I do believe that he really wants – I'm going to tell you this. Him being there is better than no one being there. So let's just understand that right now as we move forward. All right, coming back. You got to watch the clock, dude. I can't. I don't
even see a clock.
Yeah, exactly. What's in the left corner. So coming back, we got our parting thought. Save whatever you were choking on right there for our parting thoughts here as we wrap up the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, final segment of this Thursday program, Schleggs. Let's wrap up the show.
Well, my comment was going to be on Saban and why I think he's the one of the greatest coaches of all time in college football. I think he has the respect of all the coaches and administrators, and you can surround somebody with the right tool. Like we heard Richard talk about that, about somebody that could be an administrator, but like you can surround him with those people But when you're at his age, it's no longer about championships or Bama or LSU or Michigan State or any of those things that you have affinity for. It's about a legacy. And I think now he's at that point where he wants his legacy to be how he helped shape college football for success in the future over just one particular school. And that's why I think I think if you surround him with the right people that he trusts to get this job done, I think he's the guy to do it.
I agree with that, Schlegs. All right, stay tuned, stay locked in for our big show coming up on Friday as we head you in to the weekend here in the middle of May on the Bobby Carpenter Show.